Oh.
Got it. Blue button. We got it. Well, the question is going to be, hey, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Sorry for my face right there. Oh. Gina, turn your volume off. Thank you. Okay. All right. Can everybody still see the PowerPoint?
Yes, I can.
I can't see. Can you guys see the PowerPoint? All right. Excellent. 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 All right. So, Gina, can you grab the clock when you get a chance so that I can.
So do you need me on my phone?
No, you can grab that. Thank you. All right. Thank you all for your patience and understanding. And we're going to talk about fluency and precision teaching. Okay. Oop, too far around. So recently, many of you know that we went, I can't tell where I am on the screen. Should I stand over here or over here? Or either?
Yeah, either is fine.
Either's fine. Okay, good. So recently we went to the National Autism Conference, and my fierce interest in precision teaching and fluency was reignited. So I brought back a lot of information from those, and I've listened to some podcasts and additional training since then. However, disclaimer number 2, and then we'll go back to number 1, is that I am by no means a precision teacher or an expert in precision teaching. Or in fluency for that matter. So, you know, this is just meant to be a primer, a kind of beginning jump off point, but I would strongly encourage, there's a lot of resources at the end. One of those is the mini training that Gina did 3 or 4 months ago on making target objectives. And that's really a big part of what we're going to talk about. So that's almost like prerequisite for this. So all those videos are still available on our channel. So ask about that. I think you would need the links. So the other reminder is just no client information. So even in the chat, no initials, no information, no names, etc. So let's kind of start this off by just kind of like establishing some ground rules, some ground information. So just so we're all on the same page. So accuracy is what we're going to talk about first. So accuracy just means when you present a stimulus, they give the correct response. Okay. So if I say, Lindsay, where did you go to college? She says, NAC. Okay. So she accurately answered the question. Okay. So currently, when I look at treatment plans or when we talk about cases, this is really the piece that we're talking about, is that they can emit the quote unquote correct response when presented with a opportunity. So that's kind of where we start to establish that. And then we talk about fluency. Okay. So fluency takes accuracy and it adds in speed. Okay. And why is that important? Well, that's important because people have very limited interest in waiting around for someone to do something, right? So in the natural environment, things happen in real time, you know, so we want to be able to do things fluently so that our listeners are still interested. So we'll talk more about that, but that's it, right? So it's not more complicated than that. Fluency is just taking accuracy and putting it in terms of speed. We'll obviously talk about that more. Is it obvious, Rob? I don't know, who knows? So let's compare the two. So when you guys sit in trainings or meetings with Rob, and I keep saying can do versus does do, I can't even remember where that initially kind of popped into my brain to start with, but I say it a lot, can do versus does do. This is kind of like the meat of that, right? So if they have accuracy, that means they can do it, right? So they can emit the correct response. But having good fluency, okay, makes it more likely that they will do, that it does done. Nope, that's not right. But you know what I'm going for, right? So does it guarantee it? No, that makes it much more likely. Right, and we want skills to be likely to occur. So I'm gonna stay. Where's my clicker? Missing. All right, so we have little boy can eat hot dog when presented with hot dog, right? Versus the most fluent of hot dog eaters, Joey ate potatoes. Joey Cannibals. What is his last name? Oh no. I
Chestnut.
know it's Joey Fatone. So
This is crazy.
you guys, it is silly. You guys are gonna see Joey Applesauce. You guys are gonna
Joey
see
Chestnut.
Chestnut. I knew it was a food. Close enough. Close enough. You guys are going to see Joey Chestnut throughout this presentation because he is a fluent hot dog eater. Okay, we might like argue like he eats too many hot dogs, he's overperforming, you know. But oh my gosh, I just remembered that Julie's on this training and that makes me nervous, but that's okay. So
I'm not here. I'm not here. I'm not here.
You're not here. She's not here. We'll just forget that she's here. So, you know, so it's just a funny thing. So the other thing we want to make sure we establish is how we kind of take data, right? So count is like the simplest form of data tracking, and you're just counting behaviors. Okay. So Robbie hit 47 times, they brushed their teeth 5 times, kangaroo jumped 25 jumps. Okay. So it's information. Right? It is data, okay? However, rate or frequency, okay? There's some butting of heads over what you should call it. I don't care what you call it, okay? But the important piece is that you add this very important dimension, which is over time, okay? So if you're only counting, that tells us very little, okay? But if I put in, well, Robbie hit 47 times during a 2-hour math lesson, okay, now we have this dimension of time, okay? And this is another like a common kind of error or problem is that, you know, we are defining the skills that we want to go for or we're tracking the skills that they're doing. I often see it by per session, right? So per session is a vague, you know, amount of time. Right? So I can't tell if I'm doing better or worse if I just say per session. But if I say per hour, per 30 minutes, per minute, now we're all clear. Now we're all on the same page, right? And I can look at increasing fluency, okay? In a little bit, we're going to talk about RPMs, and those are not rotations per minute in what we're talking about. Those are responses per minute, okay? So we're going to talk about that a lot. But if I know, oh, they brushed their teeth 5 times in 5 years, that's disgusting, right? They brushed their teeth 5 times in 1 day, that's too much, right? So you can see how problematic they brush their teeth 5 times is. And then you can flip that because this is really like a training that's kind of focused mostly on our clinical leaders, our BCs and our BAs. You can really see that if your objective is for them to brush their teeth 5 times, period, well, you know, that's not enough information. Okay. So we want to beware. Here's our buddy Rick Cabina, who the hero of precision teaching, maybe one of the heroes of precision teaching. Is just that, so this is not a do not, this is a beware, okay? We want to be careful of using percentages and ratios, okay? Because they don't give us an idea of that over time piece. So they're good for showing accuracy, right? So if they do it 10 out of 10 times, check. They're able to do it accurately, okay? But it doesn't give us a good picture of fluency. And if you're still like not 100% sure what fluency is, that's okay. We're still, hold on, it's coming. It's coming up, right? So, you know, it makes it a little bit arbitrary, right? If they do it 50% of the time, and this is something we're not going to go down this rabbit hole, okay? But it's something that we talk about a lot, is this kind of opportunity thing. Like, what is an opportunity? You know, like Lindsay bites her nails at 20% of opportunities. What does that even mean? Lindsay can bite her nails literally at any time, right? So that makes it a free operant versus a discrete trial, right? So if I say, Lindsay, touch your nose, right? She did it, just in case you were wondering. The only situation under which she can respond to touch your nose and touch her nose is in this discrete trial kind of setting, okay? So that's when it makes a little bit more sense to use percentages and ratios. However, When we start shooting for fluency, then we want to move kind of away from that stuff. Okay. So what is fluency, right? So the kind of general consensus, if you look at the literature, they define it by 5 kind of areas. And you'll notice there is some overlap on these. They're not like mutually exclusive, right? So, so these are the 5: maintain, stable, generative, applicable, enduring. What does that mean? Well, hold on, we're gonna break down each one piece by piece. Okay, so let's start with enduring. Okay, so the accuracy, and I purposely use the word accurate over and over and over again. We're gonna say this later, but it's very important that you are not moving towards working on fluency until you've already established accuracy. Okay, so they can't do it right, and you have them do it over and over and over again, then you're going to end up having them practice errors, and then they're going to have a lot of issues with that. So I purposely use accuracy repeatedly. So accuracy, as long as necessary. Okay, so you know, if I tell Lindsay to jump rope, okay, for 30 minutes,
That is
is that
cruel.
possible?
That is cruel.
Let's just say, let's jump rope for 1 minute. Let's make it a little bit more feasible, okay? So if I say, Lindsay, jump rope for a minute, and she jumps rope, right, for 10 seconds, right, then it didn't endure as long as it needed to. That's all that it means, okay? So Joey, we always come back to Joey Chestnut, right? Joey Apples. He's got to keep eating until the end of the competition, right? Joey Chestnut, if you're watching this, I'm a huge fan. So Joey has to eat until the end of the competition, or else his skill in that setting is not worthwhile, right? Robbie greets the customers until the end of his shift. And this is not about me, because Robbie, when you're talking about me, is IE, not Y. So it's a different Robbie. So you want it to be able to endure throughout the required period of time. That's what makes it useful. If it doesn't endure, then it loses its meaning. All right, so first code word, right? So you're gonna need to write these down, or at least keep them in your head. You don't need to memorize them, because the test out is matching choice. Match to sample, multiple choice, that's it.
Matching choice.
Matching choice, matching choice. So your 3 code words today, which will be book titles. Okay, so I'm going to name 3 of my most favorite books. I don't know if I can name my 3 favorite books. Okay, but we're going to start with my most absolutely definite favorite book, which is The Once and Future King. Okay, so code word number 1 is The Once and Future King. It is about King Arthur. The first half of the book is actually what the Disney Sword in the Stone was based on, and it's fantastic, and you should read it, and it's great. Once and Future King is your first code word. So enduring means it lasts as long as it needs to, okay? So maintain, not necessarily the best word to describe it. But so this means that they easily and accurately execute it whenever necessary over an extended time. ED got cut off on extended. Okay. So how is that different than enduring? Because it's focused more on when instances pop up, right? They're doing it, as opposed to maintaining it over time. But they're both like, we don't need to fight over which, like, it doesn't make sense, because just know that they're, you know, these are all elements, okay? So every time Joey Skee Ball gets a hot dog put in front of him, that one wasn't funny. You didn't like that one?
I know, because it's food. Food is funny.
Okay, all right.
Stay within the category.
Okay, all right, there you go. I varied outside of this. So you can measure humor based on, there are some elements to it. So each time a hot dog's placed in front of him, he consumes the hot dog, right? Tristan raises his hand each time he needs to use the bathroom, right? So that's, to me, that's less about enduring, because it is based on, like, you know, some sort of stimulus, kind of like, oh, it's time to do this thing, right? People respond whenever asked, as opposed to sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. You can see where this can do versus does do. Oh, well, you know, Lindsay says hi at the table, so why isn't she doing it elsewhere? Well, because it's not maintaining, it's not a fluent skill. So it might be accurate, okay? Stable. This is one of my favorite of the things, and it's very important. And I feel like if we were all sitting in a big room, this is one I thought you guys would love. So I think this is one where, like, if we all sat in a big supervision, you guys would say, well, my kids aren't capable of this, right? So like they could not answer questions if Blippi is going on in the background. They could not be accurate if mom is calling them. They could not answer the question. They could not touch their nose if Miss Rachel is singing on the phone, right? But, right, if you're doing your favorite thing and I come over and I ask you a question, you can still answer that question accurately, right? So because you are fluent, you are capable of stability with your accuracy, right? So it's almost like accuracy over these things creates fluency, okay? So Joe eats the hot dogs, even though the pretty girls are cheering at him, he's eyes on the prize, right? He can still do those things. Donna ties her shoes even when the classroom is loud. So you might be looking at me through the screen, I can't see you, but you might be thinking, Rob, we did a training all about trauma and how we need to be trauma informed and we shouldn't push the kids too hard, we shouldn't make them do anything. Okay, yeah, but if you don't teach the kids to be able to do things when it's loud, they're never going to be able to do anything. They can't go to Disney World, they can't go to birthday parties, etc., etc., etc. Okay, there are specialized events that they might be able to do, like the Autism Society is looking at doing one of those cool silent dances, right? More information to come. Julie might be mad because I'm spilling beans before they're cooked. That's not how it works. But
the silent dance isn't about just like it being quieter or autism friendly. It's like really, really fun. The silent dance is fun because you have headphones on and people have like two different sets of music and like you're trying to, it's just really fun.
Oh, you can listen to different types of music. I thought everybody was just typing the same. Oh, everybody's gonna look so silly dancing to different music.
Well, at least that's how it was when I did it.
I
thought it was hilarious.
Yes, watching it would be fun. All right.
Oh, it was just so hilarious. And then you could switch back and forth so you could join groups depending on like if you have to figure out if the group was dancing to what you were, you know.
All right, I was 95% bought in. You pushed me to 100%.
So it's not just about like being quiet.
We need to be able to perform despite distraction. Okay. So, and I don't want to hear that your kid can't do it. Maybe it's too difficult. Okay. But don't just write your kids off. Well, they have autism, so they can't. That's silly. What is that? To say what is that called when you just say, well, they have autism, so they can't? Silly. It's silly. I don't know. There's a word for it.
Is that like ableism or something?
Rude. Ignorant, rude, assumptive, sumptuous.
Oh, you mean the presumed competence thing?
Yeah. So applicable, okay, and the last two are the ones that I kind of confuse because they feel pretty similar to me, but maybe we'll figure it out together. So applicable means easily and accurately applied to new situations. Okay. So I did it at the table, now I can do it in the living room. I did it at school, now I can do it at camp, right? So you can take what you're learning in a learning environment and you can apply it to like the quote unquote real world. It's added to your toolbox. Joey Funnel Cakes is able to eat hot dogs even when he goes over. See, it's not even just that was too much funnel cakes. Joey Funnel Cakes? No, it's too much. I've gone too long, too far with it.
I don't know. I just wasn't. I was expecting you to talk about him eating something else, so that's what I heard.
Oh, he's eating funnel cakes. Just like you heard that. Got it. So he's able to eat hot dogs even when he goes over to someone else's house. So like if he practices eating hot dogs at his house, he needs to still be able to go to the competition to eat the hot dogs, right? And he probably has, you know, everybody's like, oh, eat hot dogs at my house. You know, come over, I'll pay you $100 to eat hot dogs in front of my friends. And he probably hates that, but like, you know, if it's fluent, he would be able to do that not just at the competition. Generative. He's not naked, you can't see any parts. It's the Eureka guy. His name was, yes you do, Aristotle?
I mean, what's that from? You
I don't
just
know.
wanted Aristotle and you said the cartoon with Aristotle?
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
Eureka. I looked for Eureka. He's the one who's in the bathtub and he realized he displaced the water and he could measure.
Is he in a movie?
It's like, it's some sort of like cartoon short or something.
Oh.
But it's like real. Aristotle was like a Greek philosopher.
Yeah.
I was explaining for the people on the TV, not for you, Lindsay. I know you know who Aristotle is, Aristotle. So generative means that we got a whole comedy show going on here, and I'm striking out on a few, but hitting some others. So generative is to me the most exciting. You're almost never going to get generative skills out of just having accuracy. So generative means that you taught them something, right? And you taught them so well that they're then able to apply that situation to different situations. So that's kind of the difference between generative and the last one, which was applicable, right? Is that applicable just means you can like move it to different environments. This creates new skills altogether, okay? So like, for those of you who are like studying for the BCBA exam, the RBT exam, etc. Okay, so we talk a lot about like transitivity, like if A equals B and B equals C, we know that A equals C. So technically A equaling C is a fairly generative example, I think. You might argue with that, okay? But I'm pretty sure it's. So if I teach Lindsay to sort farm animals from transportation vehicles, and then I teach her to sort flying creatures from transportation vehicles, okay? And she is then, without teaching, able to sort the farm animals and flying creatures, okay? That would be generative, okay? A better example in my head would be if I fluently teach Lindsay to tact a bunch of her favorite things, okay? And then I teach her to man for one of those things. So I teach her to man for cookie, right? And she's fluently able to do that. And then all of a sudden she starts manding for apple and SpongeBob and blanket and all the things that she likes, or even one of those things. That's the real cherry generative stuff, right? We're like, oh my God, we got freebies, okay? And I put it on here. Maybe I put it somewhere else, but like one of the most important things, one of the first things Julie taught me was like, we get so stuck on teaching intraverbals. But if you really teach tacting and manding and these other skills, listener responding, if you teach those fluently, you really almost never have to teach intraverbals, okay? Because they just kind of get shaped up, you know, through that teaching. So it's something that, you know, again, one of the biggest pushes I think for fluency is that then you learn these other things. So again, a couple more, like why is it the gold standard? Makes it more likely to occur, right? And that's our job. Our job is not to make it so that they can do things. It's to make it so they do things. And this makes it more likely. Dude, yes. More likely to generalize and build concepts like we talked about before. So we want to build these understandings, not just like, you know, individual kind of examples. It's more likely to be maintained. It's more durable, okay? So durability is a great thing. Long lasting, more resistant to extinction, you know, more likely to happen, all those things. And just a better indicator of true mastery, right? So it tells us really that they can do it as opposed to, you know, just using accuracy. And then, you know, this is a plug I kind of bring up often. I did not read this Binder article, but I do have it saved so that I can. Is that we say like, again, like we said, we're like, oh, they have autism, so they can't, right? We get that a lot with like, oh, they have a processing disorder, so they can't answer quickly. Or, oh, they have this, they have that, so they can't. What the reality is that we show in data is that kids that have those, quote unquote, learning disabilities assigned to them can often overcome some of the things that are involved with that through good teaching. Not always. It's not like I'm not saying like I don't believe in those things. I'm just saying we put up like walls unnecessarily in a lot of cases. All right, so we're gonna do an activity here. Okay, so everybody needs something to write with and something to write on. Okay, so take a moment to do that. If you're watching the recording, you can pause and do so. Okay, but everybody needs a pen and a writing utensil. Got something, Gina? Good.
You got it?
Show me a thumbs up ready when you're ready. Can somebody see? Gina, can you see all of our learners? Thumbs up when you're ready. They look ready? All right, so here's your task. Okay, so on your piece of paper, when I say go, okay, you're going to have 30 seconds. So I'm going to put 30 seconds on the clock here. Okay, you're going to have 30 seconds. Okay, and in that 30 seconds time, what I want you to do is I want you to start at 1. Okay, and I would like you to accurately, legibly write numbers upwards from 1. So 1, 2, 3, and onward. Okay, and I want you to see how many numbers you can write in sequence. Okay, so if you miss a number, you write the wrong number, that would be counted as an error. But we're not really going to talk about that today because I'm going to assume nobody's going to make errors on writing your numbers, but who knows? Okay, so 30 seconds, and I want you just to write as many numbers upwards from 1 as possible. Okay, does that sound, you know what we're doing? Okay, ready? And even if you're watching this video, I would like you to do this as well. So if you're not watching in real time. Ready, set, go. Ten seconds. Pencils down. All right. So why did we do this? All right. So I would like to know what number everybody got to. Lindsay, what number did you get to?
41.
41. Gina?
36.
36. Put it in the chat. What number did you get to?
38.
38.
32.
32.
36.
36.
Next, 72. 42.
Okay, so we got like a range of like mid 30s to mid 40s. So no huge outliers. That's pretty cool. Okay. So why did we do this? Okay, because as I mentioned before, as I hinted before, right, some foreshadowing that I did. Poor Lindsay's the only person in the room, so she gets all the face time in here. So as I hinted before, we're moving towards an RPM, right? A rate per minute. So how can I establish that if I don't know how many times someone's supposed to be able to do something per minute? Okay, so we want to get these baselines. You can do this yourself. Gives you some information, but like a 3-year-old should not be performing at the same level as you. Okay, but we often have access to classrooms, right? So you might be able to say like, hey, I would clear with the teacher, of course. We are guests in the teacher's rooms. That's a whole other training. Okay, clear with the teacher and be like, hey, I want to teach little Joseph to be able to do these things, and I want to figure out how fast he should be able to do it. Can I like test a few of your kids? It'll take 30 seconds and just see how many times they can, touch their nose, how many things they can write, how many words they can read, whatever it is that skill you're looking at. I'm going to give you guys some ones that I pulled, and you can find them elsewhere. But this is one way you can do it, and I just thought it'd be fun to wake you up a little bit. So what would we do? We would take all those numbers, and we would I shouldn't advance the slide because this is making me laugh. So we would take all those numbers and we would just find an average, or we would just give a range. Ranges are actually better because then you can give a low, mid, high, and you can say, okay, the RPM, you know, so first of all, we would have to take this RPM and multiply it by 2, right? Because we only did 30 seconds. And then you can do 10-second timings and you can multiply it by 6, voila, you've got your RPM. You know, you would give that range, okay? So the range of RPMs in this group for writing down numbers would be like 65 to 89 or something like that. I can't remember the exact numbers, but again, I multiply them by 2 and you give that range. So you get a low, mid, high. Or you take the average and land about there, okay? So what is the process for teaching fluency? So we've established you want to have fluency, okay? But now we need to know why. So we're going to lead you step by step.
Oh my God.
I'm so upset by that.
We're going to lead you step by step through the process. I have fun coming up with pictures. It's just one of my things. So step 1, we should all be super familiar with. It's just teaching to accuracy, okay? But you can kind of see that this is typically where we stop. We teach them to accuracy and then we're done, okay? So step 2 is involving practice. So you've heard Rob, etc., say lots of things like practice opportunities or opportunities to respond, okay? So once we get them to the point where, you know, they have that ability to be accurate, then we want to start shooting for some of these other elements, right? And really the big factor is that speed, right? So you're practicing so that they can get closer and closer to those aim lines, which is what in precision teaching they call your goals, right? So if I want to get to the 40, you know, responses per minute, then I need to start practicing, and they're at 5 now. Well, I need to give them a lot of practice, right? So we're trying to get to that relative baseline. And then application, we're going to teach across different things, right? We're going to teach with different people in different, you know, settings, you know, with different, you know, change up the you know, the prompts and things like that a little bit. You know, provide distractions, right? See if they can do it when they're watching their favorite TV show. See if they can do it while they're eating. See if they can do it on the playground when there's loud noises, etc. And throughout the whole thing, you know, this is not linear, okay? So it's not like, all right, well, you know, we're done with instruction, so we can't teach them anymore. We just have to practice. No, that's not true. If they lose the skill, right, we can go back to instruction. You know, while we're teaching the fluency, we should be thinking about generalization. So it's not like you complete number 2 and you move on to 3. You know, you can kind of move those around. And, you know, very important is always maintaining the mastery of previously mastered skills, right? So, you know, we've always used like refresh, you know, kind of programs. You know, you keep those cards that they've already mastered. And using those, going back to those, using those as your distractors, using those as your, you know, your 80%. Okay, so no more than 20% should be target. You know, so you're using those refresh skills as 80%. So let's talk about a specific skill, and I will openly admit that I picked a not fantastic skill as an example. So we're going to talk about responding to the question, what's up? I thought this would be a good one because a lot of our kids mess this up, right? But then I realized it's not great for fluency. So, but I ran out of time. So if I say, what's up? How should we respond? Maybe we say, what do we say? What do we say, Z? What's up, Z?
Nothing much.
Nothing. Not much. Nothing much. Okay. Might say same old, same old. That was from a Google search. I probably would not say that. And maybe you'd say, it's all good. If you're Jim, it's all good. You might say a few things, right? But if I were going to pick which one to teach, I would teach nothing or not much or nothing much, right? Because that's typically the response to what's up, right? You don't want to say good, right? That's the, you know, what we hear a lot So this is my target skill that I want to build to fluency. So phase one, it's an underpants note from South Park. That's deep. I'm going deep on the inside jokes for this one, but it made me giggle. So the first thing I want to do is I want to teach until it's accurate, right? So I teach Lindsay. I say, you know, I can use a known skill. She's got a coex. I say, what's up? And then I say, nothing much.
Nothing much.
What's up?
Nothing much.
Nice. And I keep practicing it until she needs no prompts, right? And then if I walk in, you know, if I sit down at the table and I say, Lindsay, what's up?
Nothing much.
Excellent, right? She's got it, right? And, you know, I'm thinking about generalization at that point, right? I might be thinking like, oh, I also want her to answer this question. So I might say, you know, this is where it gets difficult. It's tricky, but I might say, you know, I might prompt it different. I might say like, what's up? It's all good. You know, I might teach some variability, or I might say, what else is up? This is where Harvey really did not do a great job of planning. Okay, but then I would practice. This is the important part. I need to give her enough examples so that I know she can do it at any given time. Would I want to sit at a table and say, what's up?
Nothing much.
What's up?
Nothing much.
What's up?
Nothing much.
What's up?
Nothing much.
What's up? This is where Rob Harvey is like, well, right? Not the perfect example, but it would have the same end result, right? So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying like with social skills, right? If I have a kid that I'm teaching the response to what's up, then, you know, they might be beyond some of this other stuff we would do fluency, but not beyond fluency, right? So don't, please, ready? Nobody is beyond fluency, right? Ready? Nobody is beyond manding, okay? Just a reminder, nothing to do with this training, but they're not. And then I get to the real like meat of this one, which is really what I would like to see to make this fluent. Is I walk, I get a point where like it's okay for me to like take Lindsay on like a 10-minute break, and I walk her around the entire park, playground, school, daycare. I take her in different rooms, but I've prepped everybody. I'm like, when I bring Lindsay in, I want you to look at her and say, what's up, Z? Right? And then make sure she can respond to anyone, right? And this room's loud, right? And she still does it in there. And this room is far away, and she still does it in there, right? You see? See, that's fluency. So that's really what we want to see. And I'd be willing to bet quite a bit of money that, you know, we have a lot of learners who do not have that skill. All right, so I'm going to cheat a little bit on response number 2. On Rob's favorite books, and I'm going to say Lord of the Rings. Okay, I understand it's 3 books, okay, but I can't pick which one is my favorite. I'm certainly not going to say that my 3 favorite books are the 3 books of Lord of the Rings, right?
I mean, you could.
I could, but that would not be, you know, they're my favorite books, so I'm just going to say Lord of the Rings. Phrase number 2, Lord of the Rings. It's the Lord of the Rings, but you got it. Such good books. So many good books out there. All right, so some tips as recommended by the experts. Okay, so at the end of this training, you're going to see two trainings from the Awesome Society specifically. So one was by Lori Chamberlain, Dr. Lori Chamberlain. She's fantastic, and she did her training in the Awesome Conference was just about fluency. The whole thing was about fluency. So much of this came from that. But then Dr. Andrew Bullock, he did one on the Morningside model, and the Morningside model is all about precision teaching and fluency. So either of those, both of those would be fantastic to watch. So I'm not a fluency expert, but they are. So the first recommendation is to use card sort. Okay, so we've provided you with the materials to do card sort, you know, but we've always recommended it. We have a lot of tools to do that. So use card sort because it makes it more likely. I always go back to the story. I had no idea what to do as a TSS years and years and years ago. And then my BC, at the time BSC, showed up with cards, with a card sort system. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what you wanted me to do the whole time. It like made it all come together. So use the cards, put what you're, put what they're supposed to be doing. It makes it easier to track, all that kind of stuff, okay? Consider any answer that takes longer than 2 seconds is incorrect, okay? And this is where the audience says, but what about processing delays? And again, like I recognize that in some cases, right, it is a consideration, like they can't get like within that 2 second goal. But I would say that in most situations where this is kind of put forth as the reason they're not responding quickly, it's just because their slow responding has been reinforced. They don't need to answer quickly. They still get it anyway, right? And then you get that that kind of chained like explanation of like, oh yeah, like this is they have slow responding. So we do 5 seconds or 10 seconds or 20 seconds or a minute, right? So you get to this point where, it shapes up really difficult future behavior. So we want to shoot for that 2 seconds, and you really should only be making that change with input from the clinical team. So you're talking to Gina, you're talking to Rob, you're talking to Ashley, you're talking to Julie, so you're making that decision with other people, because otherwise we end up with, sloppy responding, and it is detrimental. And we never move to fluency until we've got them accurate. Okay, so that is the one step of the process that is pretty linear. So like you want it accurate before you move to the other phases. Okay, so make sure it's accurate before you start shooting for time. All right, so what does precision teaching, and I say precision like teaching because I can't teach you how to precision teach because I'm not a precision teacher, okay? But I can adopt some of their methods so that I can be better at what I do. Okay, so we establish our goal or our aim line. They refer to it as an aim line, right? So I decide where I want to go. So I want Lindsay to be able to tact 20 things in 1 minute based on my research and her age and all those kinds of things. Okay, so that's my aim line. I establish the baselines are in reverse, or they're both kind of coupled, right? So I'm like, okay, how many can she do now, right? So now I know where I am and where I want to go. And then I'm going to use cumulative data, right, to see if she's moving towards that goal, right? And if she's going down or if she's staying the same, guess what? I need to change my teaching procedure, right? It's not that, oh, well, she can only do 10. You're done. Congratulations, It's something's not, maybe eventually we have that conversation like, okay, she's plateaued. But, if Joey Chestnut gave up eating hot dogs when he can only eat, I don't know, how many does he eat? It's like over 100. It's a disgusting amount of hot dogs. If he gave up, then he never would have become the champion, right? So, and so really cumulative data is where it's at for precision teaching, right? For fluency. So that we can see over time, really there's very rarely does it dip, it could happen, but how many is it?
Well, it says he's eaten more than 70 dogs and buns 6 times.
Ew, more than 70 dogs and buns.
He also holds the world record for most chicken wings, hard-boiled eggs, grilled cheese sandwiches, and Twinkies. Disgusting.
What did Jeff say? 76?
76 is the most, I guess.
Jeff, I can't do it right now, but gold star. Gold star for Jeff. So my reminder that I put in any training, right, is that this can, should, and must be fun and successful. So if you've got your kid and you're doing something, so if I'm teaching, what are we teaching, Lindsay? Put you on the spot here.
What are we teaching?
Yeah, what am I going to teach you?
Writing letters.
What? Writing letters. Perfect, right? And she's engaging in problem behavior during this, and I'm working on fluency. Do you know how much problem behavior I'm going to get? How difficult and terrible this process is going to be? Then I've just become school, right? Practicing things that people don't like over and over and over again, right? So what I need to do is I need to make it reinforcing, fun, fast, fast and successful enough. And I'll tell you, so you guys, many of you know that like my younger son learned to read through precision teaching, 100%. School did not teach him to read, okay? So, and he did not like reading at the beginning, but she was able to find a way, and I would love for every one of you to consult with her, but she's very expensive and very busy. She was able to pair it in a way to set up special reinforcers, to praise him, to make him feel successful, to make it fast and fun, to the point where now he reads by choice. She taught him to read, and she taught him to love to read.
That's amazing.
It is amazing, right? It really is it's just like earth shattering, but like, this is what we do. This is what we are capable of, right? Is to not only teach people to do things, but to teach them to do them well and to love to do them. Because if you teach them all these, you know, we've said this a lot too, like if you teach them all the great social skills and all the great communication skills, but they still hate other people, what have you given them? Almost nothing, right? Not nothing, right? They can probably still advocate for themselves and do things like that. So that is important. So you know, in that second phase 2, the practice phase, okay, really what we need to be doing is increasing those practice opportunities. Okay, Robin showed us that awesome training. I think I put in the references at the end, but it was really just about intensity of treatment, deciding intensity of treatment, and what he kept saying over and over again is OTRs, opportunities to respond. Okay. And you can call it practice opportunities, you can call it whatever they want, but it just boils down to the more times they're presented with the stimulus and they respond, okay, correctly, so that they move towards that fluency. You know, and so we're not, you know, if any of you sat in interviews with me lately, I say this in every one, we don't wait for teachable moments, we create teachable moments. Because if we wait for them to happen and then just use, you know, just wait, oh, it's a good natural opportunity, it's going to take them years or they'll never learn. They've already missed milestones. We can't wait, right? We gotta make opportunities, and that's hard. I mean, we did that. That was an activity in a recent meeting that we had, was trying to come up with ways to do that. What slide am I on? I have no idea. I can't tell. Well, I feel like I'm pretty good, but I'm
23 out of 20, 23 out of 32.
okay. All right. 5 minutes, let's do it. So a piece of this, and again, I recommend, like, we probably won't thoroughly get through everything, but watch those trainings, and hopefully I've wetted your whistle. So teaching component skills is a big piece of this, right? And the most valuable thing that I heard in this training was, if you see a kid struggling with a skill, okay, don't teach them that skill. Look at this component skills of the thing that you want them to do, teach those to fluency, and you usually won't have to teach the thing they're struggling with, right? Generative. There you go. So, you know, when you look at like kids in regular schooling, they fail first grade, and what happens? They get pushed to second grade. So they go to learn the second grade stuff and they don't know the first grade stuff. And guess what? They're not going to learn this, and they're not going to learn this and that and this, and then they just get graduated at the end with almost nothing, right? Education system, a little bit broke, okay? But that's besides the places like Morningside are fixing that, but one little, you know, school at a time. So if I want Lindsay to write her letters and numbers, but she can't hold a pencil, okay, and she can't even pinch something. So you can't use pinch or grasp, which is one of the big 6 skills, which we'll just briefly reference. That she can't do this, right? So this is where we need to be doing these task analyses on everything we do. We now have AI can do it all for you. Okay, what are the component skills of writing letters, numbers, and words? That I can't remember what it's called, but it will immediately give you all the things you need to do. So you need to teach these things to fluency before you can expect or teach that thing. And you can do that with anything. Look up component composite analyses, and you'll see examples for everything. You'll build these, what they call atomic repertoires, which is really just, you know, generative generalization learnings. So in order to recall, to have good listener responding, to be an observational learner, to learn from your environment, okay, you need to have fluent tactic. Okay, so this is why we say like they gotta be good imitators, they gotta be good echoers. And you're like, oh yeah, I taught them they can do 5 of those. No, they need to be able to echo, imitate everything, anything. And then they're gonna start getting observational learning, which is one of our most valuable things. And that's how you learned, okay? You weren't taught social skills. You weren't. Maybe some of you were, okay? A little bit, okay? Maybe some of us should have been taught more, but that's besides the point. You learn from your environment. You watched what other people did, and you really learn to imitate that well. You echo. That's why people have accents, right? Because they're echoing what they hear. That's what we want. We want them to have those generative skills. So if I'm beginning fluency, so here we got some aim lines. Okay. No. These are some suggestions. The aim lines come up in a little bit. These are some suggestions, so you can start when they have about 20 accurate responses, and it gives some recommendations for aim lines and just general tips, right? So you're not going to have them echo like the cow jumped over the moon, right? Or supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, right? You're going to have them echo. You're going to have them start with simple things so that they can rattle them off. Nobody can fluently say, well, most people cannot fluently rattle off supercalifragilisticexpialidocious like 100 times in a row. It's not even a socially significant skill. Here we go. Here's some aim lines. So these were pulled from, I forgot to put the citation here, but it's in the fluency training. Some of you, Julie and I at least, will recognize John McElway, who is a BCBA, who the Autism Initiative loves. But he did some adult competency aim lines if you're working with transition age. And so we've got some if you don't want to do your own baseline creation. But the best baselines are going to be the peer group that your kid is in. So if you can do that, I would say do that. If you can't, use these. Use these. You want to shoot for 3 timings per day. So timings, so they do the practice, the teaching, right? They do all that kind of stuff separate. And then about 6 times per day, they sit down with them with their stopwatch and they say, ready, set, go. And then they have them start the skill, okay, to get towards their aim line, right? And you see usually progressively they get a little bit better as you go throughout the session because they're practicing and it's fresher in their mind. If they hit that aim line early, you're good. You don't have to keep doing timings, right? But these are just the timings and tests. That's not the practice, right? So if the only intensive teaching you're doing, period, regardless of fluency, is when you're checking to see if they have it, you're not actually teaching them anything, right? They need practice opportunities. This is like a whole training in and of itself, and I'm not exactly sure what the +6, I think it's the 6 additional ones that aren't on there. But the big 6 skills are just kind of like physical skills that our kids really need to be able to do as component skills of many other things. So reaching, pointing, pinching, shaking, squeezing, and twisting. So you want them to be able to do these things fluently. Okay, so reaching towards something that they like, pointing at something that they like, squeezing like an eyedropper tube or a push-up bottle or whatever it might be. So you want to focus on things that they will enjoy doing repetitively. Okay, and of course the Bop It is a great example of this, although it does not have the 6 skills on it. And the big 6 people should make a new Bop It. So this is like the precision teaching instruction kind of process, which sounds, it's just like another version of what we've already talked about. So they pinpoint their aim line. So where are we shooting for? They teach, they measure it. If they're not going up, if they're going down or they're staying the same, then they're going to figure out what they need to do to change it. Okay? They're not going to wait. They're not going to say like 5 more weeks and then we'll revisit. And they try again. So they kind of, consistently think about that. Use the data. Your final book is, what am I going to pick? Book number 3. We're going to go with The World According to Garp. And that is by John Irving, better known for Cyber House Rules. Cyber House Rules is not an answer to this question. but John Irving is an amazing writer, and The World According to GARP, G-A-R-P, is your third
World
thing.
according to GARP.
GARP, yep. It's a great book, wonderful, it'll change your life. So just a couple fun quotes, right? So it makes work become easier rather than tedious, and learning becomes fun. So that was what, that's exactly what we talked about with what happened to my son. Yeah. I was like, that seems repetitive. And it'll make it long-term, less fragile, more durable, okay, more broad repertoires. 1978. All right, so there's your list of fun things that will help you. I don't know what this one is. I will send that out. That was one of the articles I referenced, and it converted it to the DOI instead of actually putting a reference there. But these trainings are not immediately available, the 3 autism conference trainings, unless you attended. But I think they'll probably have them posted fairly soon. Yeah. All right. Go ahead, Ashley.